Can you tell me what you are?
I am a human, first and foremost. That is my answer all the time. If not that, usually my response back is, why do you need to know?
Will identify myself as half Mexican and half Caucasian.
Japanese and half Cuban, Spanish.
I identify as Chinese and Japanese.
Hispanic and Asian or others.
I am mainly English and German, but I also have some Native American, Cherokee.
So I classify myself as African Arab. I'm actually originally Sudanese.
Oh, what are you? That's one of my favorite questions. I get that one a lot.
What culture do you identify with most, and do you think there's a reason why you identify with that culture the most?
That's kind of a tough one. It's weird because, in the US you don't really want to, I look almost more white, I guess you could say. So when people ask me kind of like the race I am, I usually tend to talk more about my Mexican heritage, because it's maybe something that people, if they looked at me, they wouldn't necessarily know. So I find myself talking about that more and almost identifying with it more just because of the way I look. I feel like I have to make up for that.
The culture I identify with most is definitely Sudanese.
I would definitely say I identify more with my Japanese side, mostly because both my parents are second or third generation, so they've been in the United States for a long time. And my dad was who's Chinese, my dad is Chinese, he is very disconnected from his Chinese side.
What do you think has been your biggest struggle with self-cultural identity?
I would say I struggle
With self-cultural identity is, I would just say again, the way that I look. It's something that's pretty obvious. It's something that everyone sees when they look at you, as well as not being able to speak Spanish fluently.
I think it's been easier in some ways for me to adapt or feel more comfortable in Latin cultures because I speak Spanish, and so that has made things a lot easier for me.
I'm Chinese, I'm Filipina, I'm Puerto Rican, but I don't speak Chinese, I don't speak Tagalog, I'm only learning Spanish. How can I be a part of all those cultures and appreciate all of them when I was only raised in one? I'm not even strong in that culture either. A lot of people like to say, oh, well, you don't count because you're this, or, oh no, you're not really blank. Yes, I am. I am Chinese, I am Filipina, I am Puerto Rican. I'm very proud of those. And you don't get to tell me what is not important. You don't get to tell me which part counts. I'm very tired of people deciding whether or not I'm enough based on their standards of what my culture is.
I think people that are half sometimes don't fit squarely within one culture or the other, and so in some ways I think that's probably why they have this term Hapa. I think that developed because we feel that we're different. People that are half Asian are different from people that are full Asian, or and so they created this sort of new category of people.
Now
eat all the whipped cream.
I love you.
Always messes up somewhere around the middle.
Back off.
Have you at any moment in your life that was truly a profound cultural moment?
I was about around 6, I'd say, maybe even 7. And I was with my little brother and my older brother, and my little brother has really blonde hair. And at the time I had brown hair, and my older brother has darker hair, but we all have pretty light skin. And so we look really different from my mom. My mom has really, really dark hair, darker skin, kind of obvious that she's Latina. So I remember just kind of going around as a child, being pushed in a stroller from her, and a lot of people actually thought she was my nanny. and I couldn't understand why, like at the time. And, you know, until I was older, then I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of just really like bizarre that like someone thought that when she was like, you know, she's my mom, like she was the woman that like raised me.
When I was a sophomore, I was commuting to UCLA in the summertime, and I was on a train, and there was an old woman that sat down across from me, and she was got to be, I think she was like in her 70s, or she was a very elderly woman, and she started talking to me about Pearl Harbor. And she started talking about the Japs and how she hated the Japs and all the stuff she went on about it. And I sat there and she didn't know I was Japanese. And I was just looked at her and I thought, wow, it's interesting to be in talking to her to see her perspective, because if she knew that I was Japanese, she couldn't talk the way she was talking. And, you know, I understand because she had friends that died at Pearl Harbor, and so she had some kind of, you know, experience like that. But I realized that, you know, at that moment, I realized that, you know, it's so different. You know, like I always thought, you know, you go in and people just accept you or don't accept you. But there are times when people accept you when they really don't accept you. And you don't even know when that is. And that was a time where I knew that if she knew I was Japanese, that I wouldn't be accepted by her. And it was interesting. And I
that you see more mixed children that you did when you were younger, and do you think that how people perceive them and treat them has changed?
Oh my God, yes. Do you know? Well, when I was little, I remember standing there when we were like, I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I was at a gas station. And you know, this happened a couple of times, but I remember this one particular time where somebody would drive by at a gas station saying to my mother, go back to where you're from. And just yelling as they're coming by. And I just thought, wow, you know, that's, and, you know, I knew when I was very young that, you know, we were considered different. And I just recently heard this story. My mother was saying that the first house that we lived in, they actually had a vote to see whether they were going to let them buy their house because my parents were interracial. And they wanted to know whether it was a problem for the neighbors to have them move into the neighborhood. And actually, my mom and dad didn't find out until years later, but it was like, you know, that's the way it was. I mean, people didn't even want, it wasn't even like that he was white or Hispanic and she was Japanese, but they were white and were Hispanic and Japanese mixing together that was the issue. And that was more of a thing than having just an Asian couple, or just a white couple, or just a Hispanic couple.
Okay. What do you think the future of America is? Like, do you think that we're moving towards a more racially, like, inclusive culture? Are we moving towards a more racially diverse culture? If we are, if we aren't, what do you think that means for, like, our future and your kids and whatever?
Yes, without a doubt. There's so much blending going on, and no matter what people think, like it's not going to go the opposite direction. You know, it's not going to go back. There's only going to be more and more, blending and diversity happening.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's going to continue, because there's a lot of kind of anger and fear towards people that are different that I see more now than I did like 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, California is obviously a different state, but I hope we don't see a reversal. I see it in the rest of the country. Like, I think that will probably happen.
I've always, you know, ever since I can remember, my parents always said, be proud of who you are. And I can remember, even when I was a little kid, when I was 4 or 5 years old, I remember in the shower with my mom or my dad, I remember one of them saying, be proud of who you are, always be proud of who you are. And I think they've always identified with that. So I just I feel just like so lucky. I feel lucky that I'm different, and I'm lucky that I have a chance to experience two cultures.
My cultures are who I am. They're how I see myself and often how other people see me. They're important to me. They're important to my experiences. And they are who I am.